Workspace Manager folders can have documents added dynamically to them using a capability DocAuto refers to as provisioning. Provisioning is the process of identifying the documents that should go into a specific folder and adding them to that folder or moving them from one folder into the folder that is being provisioned. Provisioning can be configured in a number of different ways. Provisioning can be configured to search across all accessible databases as part of the Workspace Manager job. This will expand the search for documents to be provisioned into a folder to all the databases that are accessible on the current server that the job is running against. This functionality is frequently used in parallel workspace configurations. Parallel workspaces will be covered in separate videos by DocAuto. Folders can be provisioned as part of the creation process or when they're modified, or both. Additionally, jobs can be set up to do continuous reprovisioning of documents within folders so that a document folder is reprovisioned even if no changes have been made to the folder. Continuous reprovisioning is also used in parallel workspace environments or in specific special purpose jobs that are used to eliminate orphan documents or documents that are not in any specific workspace or folder within the database. As part of the provisioning process, all of the documents within the folder can be removed, or all of the shortcuts in the folder can be removed before new content is added to the folder. Removing shortcuts is a convenient way of resetting folders, again, that are used in a parallel workspace environment with cross-provisioning of shortcuts to documents in other databases. Provisioning settings can be applied to all versions of a document, but the double checking can also be applied so that the document will only be added to a folder if only the highest version of the document matches the specific metadata values used for provisioning. Note that this capability does not apply to provisioning searches that use full text search criteria. As part of the provisioning process, folders can be refiled so that content that has been added to the folder can get the new metadata and security values applied to them. This is commonly used in situations where orphan documents are added to folders and additional metadata values exist on the folder that may not have been present on the documents or may not have been used to identify the documents to be placed in a particular folder, or if special security settings are applied to the folder or workspace, and those security settings should be applied to the documents as they're added to the correct workspace or folder. The provisioning process can also declare and or undeclare content as part of the process when content changes within the folder. And then provisioning can also remove documents that have been added to this folder from all other folders where they may exist. Note that global provisioning exceptions can be defined globally within the Workspace Manager global options to apply to all provisioning jobs, all templates, and all folders, so that specific exceptional folders can exist that contain documents that are added to other secondary folders without removing those documents from those special purpose folders. When removing documents from other folders, we can also delete those empty folders after the last document is removed, delete their empty parent folders, and ignore searches and shortcuts as part of that process. These settings allow for a smooth migration of content from legacy folder structures or other non-matter-centric folder structures to the matter-centric folder structures, providing users with a visual cue when content has been moved to a workspace that the legacy folder structures have been emptied out and removed. If users then look for content in the historical locations for that information, they will see that those structures have been deleted, providing them with the information that they need to go to the new workspace to find that content now. Workspace Manager also includes the ability to make new physical copies of documents returned by provisioning searches when provisioning content into folders. DocAuto urges extreme care when using this option, since it will generally only be used when folders are provisioned as part of an initial creation process, and specific provisioning searches have been defined to populate the folder with form documents, master KM documents, or other types of documents where new physical instances of the documents need to be created. In addition to the when and how to provision settings on folder provisioning options, WorkSpace Manager has the ability to control what will be provisioned into a specific folder as part of the provisioning process. What to provision allows you to define which documents will be moved as part of the provisioning process. By default, all folders use what we call auto provisioning. Auto provisioning will use the folder's defined profile values to identify documents to be moved as part of the provisioning process. That means that any metadata value that has been defined on the folder will automatically be applied to identify documents to move as part of provisioning. While this setting works well in many situations, there are also many situations where it is desirable to take greater control over the provisioning process to identify documents. When you uncheck the auto provisioning checkbox, you enable the user-definable search interface to allow specific searches to be configured for the provisioning process. For example, I can define a search with any combination of worksite metadata, such as client number, matter number, and then other values that can be used to identify documents. For example, I can look for documents based on their class or document type by looking them up straight from the worksite validation tables. Note that here we have a multiple select capability, so I can look for multiple documents that have specific metadata values on them for their class or document type value. So here I can define a value that has multiple values that I'm looking for and use that to find the documents that I want to move into a particular folder. This capability is convenient if the metadata on your documents is being redesigned to a new schema, so legacy metadata values can be combined into one folder. Then the new metadata value can be applied by refiling the documents as they're added to the new folder. In this type of configuration, metadata configurations can be changed in one step as part of the provisioning process. Once a search is defined with multiple metadata values, each with potentially multiple individual values, these values are added to the search that is used to provision documents into this folder. Note that any number of searches may be defined. This also exposes very powerful capabilities within WorkSpace Manager for carefully restricting documents that can be moved into specific folders. Additional metadata values, such as scope, can be added to a search to restrict which documents are moved into a particular folder. The scope value or filter is applied after the normal search is executed and will analyze where the documents returned by the search are actually located within the worksite interface. Specific values are valid and are listed within the help text of the provisioning dialog. So, for example, to find documents that have specific combinations of metadata but that are not in this particular workspace, use the not this workspace operator. What this will do is perform the search using the metadata values and then analyze the results returned by that search. If the documents are already somewhere in the current workspace, either in a managed or user-created folder, they will be left where they are and not added to the folder being provisioned. If, on the other hand, they are in a different workspace, different folder, or not in any folder or workspace anywhere, they will then be added to this folder as part of the provisioning process. This exposes very powerful capabilities within the WorkSpace Manager interface for remediating situations such as orphan documents or misfiled documents. Again, all of the normal filter parameters are possible within defining a search, including document number, and then whether or not documents are externally shared, declared as records, have related documents, or even default security values on the documents. Using these types of provisioning searches, private documents can be isolated within a workspace, externally shareable documents or documents that have been declared as records can be moved into specific sections or areas within a workspace. Note that Workspace Manager also has the ability to perform full text searches when provisioning documents, and the full text search can use values driven directly by a database search. So for example, I can find all the documents that have this client description and matter description somewhere in the body of the documents, but are not in this workspace already, and add them to a particular folder within the workspace. This is also used to remediate situations where generic or bad metadata has been applied to documents, and orphan documents need to be remediated to be located into proper or potentially proper workspaces and folders within the interface. Additional capabilities include the ability to provision documents specifically by document number. This is referred to as optimized provisioning. By using secondary queries that return just the document numbers of specific documents that meet certain criteria, a Workspace Manager provisioning job can be used to very meticulously place individual documents by version number into specific folders. Additional information on optimized provisioning is available within the Workspace Manager Job Strategies Guide.